Welcome to the Back on Track podcast with me, Sam West. In every episode, I interview someone who's changed, recovered, or become successful after having faced real adversity in their life. On today's episode is martial arts expert, entrepreneur, and community worker Gavin Eastham, who became homeless back in 2018 after the breakdown of his marriage. After spending his first few nights in a bus shelter or a phone box when it was hailing outside, during the daytime, Gavin decided to go to the library in order to stay warm. Incredibly, it was on the computers there that he decided to buy a website domain name for £1.58 and start his own martial arts business. After getting temporary housing from the council, Gavin started giving classes in the local community centre, but has since grown this into a six-figure business, which also helps the community too. So, without further ado, let's find out what happened by listening to Gavin's story from start to finish. So, Gavin, first of all, I just want to say a massive thank you for taking the time to come on the podcast, especially at this early hour in the morning. How are you doing? How's everything going?
I'm very good. Thank you very much for having me on your podcast.
No worries at all. No worries at all. It's a pleasure. And Gavin, if we could start getting straight into it, I guess the best place would be if you could just explain to us a bit about the events which led up to you becoming homeless back in, I think it was of February 2018.
Yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, it was a breakdown of my marriage, which then led me to leaving the family home. I left the family home with nowhere to go because I didn't have a choice really. So for the first, I think it must have been the first 4 or 5 nights, the only place I could stay was in a brick bus shelter. It was the only place nearer the family home that I could stay, that was keeping me emotionally attached to there really. So brick bus shelter for 5 nights, and then the hailstone came. This was February 2018, and North Wales loves a bit of hailstone.
Yeah.
So plenty of hailstone came, and it was coming sideways into the brick bus shelter. So then, of course, I upgraded to a BT phone box, which, albeit wasn't great for lying down, it was great for having four walls and a roof. And that then obviously kept me a bit dry and a bit warmer.
I can't believe you had that added misfortune of having sideways hail for, your first couple of nights on the street. That must have just been terrible. What was going through your mind at that stage, having just become homeless? Because I imagine it must be a really daunting and scary experience in some way. How was that for you?
I mean, I'm a bit of a city boy as well, so it doesn't really help that I don't have the greatest physical resilience, despite what I do for a living. For me, it was hell really, and I'm sure everyone that's been in a similar position would agree. And I'm sure other people deal with it better than others. For me, it was just a case of trying to get through the night, because then the daytime seemed to be a little bit more normal, because at least there were people around. You could be walking around, you could go places. I mean, obviously, you're trying to kill the time during the day and stuff, but for me, it was just trying to get through the night. And it didn't take me very long, after doing a little bit of research in the local library on how to survive homelessness. It was actually to not try and get your head down and sleep during the night time, to actually stay active during the night time, and then try and rest if you can during the daytime. And that was quite a big moment, if you like, that changed things, because I was up and about walking a lot, which obviously kept me warm. Passed the nights a lot quicker because I was walking from place to place, and then during the daytime just trying to find somewhere where I could rest.
So was that also a safety thing, staying active at night? Because I imagine you're probably more vulnerable, in the early hours, sleeping somewhere, than you would be during the day. So is that a safety thing as well as staying warm? Or?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, that didn't really enter my head, but you have got the thought of every little noise and whatever else that might have been near you. You was aware of it, so you were never really resting. But For me, it was more not wanting to be seen. So I didn't want to be seen as somebody that was homeless.
Right.
That's why, like during the day, for example, I used a local leisure centre to leave. I only had one bag with me, but I used that leisure centre to leave my bag in the locker. So I weren't even carrying a bag around. I just looked like somebody walking around in a big coat, you know. It was only after a few days that I did start to obviously look a little bit unshaven and a little bit unkept. But I was doing the best I could to use the facilities even there at the leisure centre to look the best I possibly could in the given circumstances. Because I didn't want people to think that I was homeless.
Sure. Did your family or any of your closest friends, did anybody really know the extent of what was going on, or did you hide it from them as well?
Well, no, you see, because I mean, I'm from Yorkshire originally, and when I moved to North Wales, a lot of my friends and family were left behind in Yorkshire. I didn't really have much contact with those guys anyway. So for me, I was literally on my own, because the only people that obviously I was with prior to homelessness, I was no longer with, so it was quite a solitary experience.
Wow, that must have been extremely difficult. And did you ever experience any hostility or negativity from members of the public when during the time that you were homeless, or were you able to just sort of mask it so well that nobody actually realized?
No, I was really lucky. To be brutally honest with you, I was really lucky that I never came across anyone. So during the night, I was in the best places possible where I wouldn't be seen. And during the daytime, I spent most of my time in the local library. I was fortunate enough to know the head librarian there was actually an old neighbour, and so she knew who I was. So I used to go in. I used to literally spend all day, every day, on the computers, just to try and pass time really on the internet. And that was twofold really. One, because like you said, I wanted to stay out of the public eye and just stay away from people. And obviously, a computer section of a library is the place to go if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, yeah,
And on top of that, it was warm and dry. So if I was to drop off or whatever for half an hour here, half an hour there, I felt safe. There was nobody watching, so that was quite good. And it was whilst I was actually on the computers that I started to energize myself with the pretense of opening my own business, because I didn't think that was possible whilst being homeless, and it was never supposed to happen. It was only supposed to be a whole pretense just to fuel me and give me energy to continue on, really.
yeah, yeah. And I read that, and you ended up buying a domain for, was it £1.58? And when you bought that domain, to start up your own martial arts business, you then thought you had to carry on and you had to do it, which is kind of funny from now what I see in the papers as being a six-figure and successful business. But so talk to me about trying to make that dream a reality, because it will seem crazy to people listening that you were sleeping, in a bus shelter or a phone box, and one of your first thoughts was, I'm going to start up my own business, and you buy a domain in the library. It seems hard to piece together almost. If you could just talk us through that process and your mindset in that time.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, for me, I was unemployed prior to my homelessness due to a few medical issues that I've got. So DWP saw fit that I didn't need to work. And when I was homeless, it was a case of, well, I really had two choices. I could either go down the route which I felt I felt would have been very easy to do, to be brutally honest. It's quite easy to stay warm with a bottle of whiskey or whatever, or to
Mm,
dull pain with multiple painkillers, etc., etc. And of course, that can lead on to other drugs and stuff. So I had that potential, but thankfully, that's not my personality. That's not something that I've ever led towards in the past, nor would ever need to lead towards in the future. And although I did enjoy maybe a little bit too much whiskey, it never became a problem, and it never became an addiction, if you like, because it didn't last long enough before I started thinking, right, what can I do? What can I do to just keep my mind busy? And that's exactly what it was. So I went into the library, like you just said, a minute ago, Sam. I bought the domain name cobralife.co.uk. It was dead
Yeah.
cheap, and I just thought, why not just do this? And I started to build this brand to fuel myself, and every part of the brand meant something. So the Cobra for me means a lot, especially from being a homeless person, because Cobras want to just be left alone. Don't speak to them, don't hear them, just leave me alone. I'm not interested. And they give off so many warning signals when they are being disturbed, right up until the very last minute when they will have to, with no option but to bite. And that's what the logo is all about, really. And so to live your life like a cobra, hence Cobra Life. And I wanted to be a family martial arts because obviously I'd lost my family, and I wanted to obviously rebuild in my mind this community, because family doesn't need to be blood, of course, just this community of people that come together that care for each other. And for me, black belt is the pinnacle of somebody's martial arts achievement. So to be a black belt academy would mean that I could help set other people's mindset on that perseverance of that, that winning attitude, if you like. So building this brand, and I remember going to Primark and buying a dead cheap shirt and trousers so that I could look and pretend to be like a businessman. And I even remember trying to find my credit score on ClearScore, and they couldn't find it, which meant I was a ghost, basically. And because they couldn't find it, they asked if I could do a short questionnaire, and I was in with a chance of winning a £20 Amazon voucher. So, of course, that's not going to be me, is it? But I did. I won the voucher.
Oh,
Um,
lovely.
and with Amazon, you see, when I give this story out in schools and stuff, and I'm trying to be motivational, I usually ask the kids, "What do you think I bought as a homeless person with £20 Amazon gift voucher?" Oh, soap, blanket, sleeping bag. No, I bought myself a briefcase.
A briefcase.
That's how mad I was. I was like, yeah, briefcase, shirt and tie, trousers. That's what a businessman looks like.
That's amazing that was the thing that you chose to buy. Incredible.
It is, and I still have it to this day, and it's sat in my office, Billy the briefcase, and it's part of my story that I give to people when they ask me to give my story, and it's there to keep me grounded, to remember just where I was, no matter where I may go. But anyway, so Billy the briefcase, and myself, I even joined a county council led business group where people used to help each other get off the ground with entrepreneurship and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
and it was actually the very last straw, this was February 2018 when I became homeless. It was about April when the local council had given me temporary accommodation. And it was around that time that I spoke to the CEO of a local radio station, who I pretended I was going to advertise with, and the adverts was going to be like £10,000 a month, and I was going to spend all this money on advertising, even though I didn't have lint in my pocket. But I was going to these things just again to pretend. But it was something he said, because I had these delusions of grandeur, and then he just went, "Well, what's stopping you from opening one class in a local community centre somewhere? You don't have to do all the different age groups and all the different styles that you know. Why don't you just pick one style that you think is going to be the most popular, the one age group that's going to be the biggest catchment, and go with that?" And I was like, wow, that actually really made it a bit more simple. And that's what I did. So by May, so literally in that short space of time, by May, I'd opened my first class in a local community centre. And I
Wow.
remember distinctly the very first night, I was in temporary accommodation, which was upstairs in a pub, about 10 miles from the location that I was opening. And I'd been given a hold all by a guy from church, with some martial arts stuff in there because he'd done martial arts in the past as well. And I carried it on the bus, and I'd got strike shields, and I'd got all this stuff under my arms and stuff. And the bus driver took one look at me and just went, "Get on, mate," because I was like, I couldn't get the change out of my pocket. He just let me get on, and I had to go on the bus, and it was a nightmare. But that's where it started.
Could you talk to me about the feeling when you first got into your temporary accommodation? Because, after spending 4 weeks on the streets in what would have been, winter, with some of the weather you described, hail, I imagine rain, and just freezing cold, sleeping in a phone box in a bus shelter. What was that feeling like when you actually had a solid roof over your head that you could call yours effectively?
Well, the first place they put me in was actually a Holiday Inn Express. So that was the first. That was the first place they put me in. So of course, as a national franchise, you expect a certain level of quality there. And when I got there, I mean, it was just warm, a bed, which seemed like an absolute luxury. But more on top of that, a bloody shower.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I remember using that shower the first day 4 times the same day, just because the feeling of hot water running over me was like just amazing. And it's funny because going forwards, it's the little things now that I do really appreciate, because I don't think you really appreciate certain things until you've no longer got them, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely, absolutely. I can imagine. And yeah, so when I was reading about this story, I kind of thought, how did it get started? Because you'd have to rent a space, you need equipment and stuff like that. But as you say, it was the community centre, which I imagine enabled you to set it all up relatively cheaply in a way. So you go there on the bus, laden with stuff. And how does the first class go?
Well, I had 3 people show up, which broke my heart. But then they were going to only be, a small handful, because I couldn't afford to advertise. So for me, I'd done a little bit of Facebook marketing, the best I could. And yeah, 3 people showed up. 2 of those joined on the first night. I'd already pre-planned the way the programs were going to run, the way the memberships were going to run. I'd already
Wow.
joined with a company to help with direct debits and all that kind of stuff. And in fact, me and the gentleman from this company, Nest Management, joke about it now. And he met me in the very library that I was harboring in, when I was still pretending to set up this martial arts school. I'd even gone so far as meeting somebody from a company that provides martial arts schools with assistants and billing and stuff. And it was a matter of weeks and weeks and weeks later that I finally did join them. But yeah, 2 joined, and then it was a case of, some people came back, some people didn't, and it was slowly right up until September of that year. And for me, the biggest turnkey, which boosted the business into anywhere where it would be able to go now, was I was working in a local primary school as a volunteer for another company who wanted me to be interviewed by the children. And it was during that interview with the children that the class teacher, who was a martial artist, asked me if I could provide something to her children during a PE class. So I was like, yeah, that sounds cool. So I went in there, taught basic martial arts class. She loved it. And there was a lady in the background that kept sort of popping her head in and out during the class. And I didn't realize that was the head teacher. And she came in at the end, and she just said, look, we've had loads of karate clubs and whatever, because everyone's getting called a karate club. I've had loads of people coming in doing that kind of stuff in the past, but what you seem to be doing encompasses different areas of life skills. I want to work with you. What programs have you got? And I'm a bit like, didn't really have anything. I was kind of winging it.
You make it up as you go along, yeah.
Yeah, just wing it. I'm a massive advocate of a saying which we now actually have as part of our instructor training protocol, called Fit Me, which is fake it until you make it.
That's something that you were doing even when you were homeless, with the suit, with the briefcase. So that really is something that you embody, and you're a great example of that, Gavin. Actually, that is fascinating. Before we find out how that played out with the school, with them asking you to provide something a little bit different. Could you just tell us a bit about your background in martial arts and your credentials? Is probably not the right word, but if you could just talk us through, your martial arts experience and which ones you did and all of that stuff.
Yeah, no, of course. So I started when I was 3, 4 years old. Started with WTF Taekwondo. And during the years, I progressed from WTF Taekwondo. I did quite a lot of boxing and Muay Thai. Then I moved into doing ITF Taekwondo. Then I moved into doing karate, kickboxing, different kabudos. So over the years, I've managed to, well, right now I'm sat with 6 third dan black belts in obviously 6 different martial arts, and I'm working towards my first dan in a 7th martial art. So 7 black belts is what I'm on, but I want to continue to do that because the more experience I get in different martial arts, the more I can then pass that down, obviously, into the students and provide as much value as I possibly can, really.
Wow, that's incredible to be that level in so many different disciplines. I can't imagine the amount of work and dedication and everything else that must have gone into that. So
Well, I'm broken now.
you're broken now from it. Yeah, it's taken its toll on the body.
My back's gone, no hips, knees are arthritic. So yeah, that's like my reward for all the effort. But the most important thing, of course, with any industry is having the skill isn't the same as being able to impart that skill. So it's been like I was a driving instructor many years ago, and it's the same thing. You could be a really awesome driver, but that doesn't mean you make a very good driving instructor. So for me, making sure that I had the coaching ability, the instructional ability, which is something I'm really, really keen on now with my instructors. They have to go through a rigorous instructor training protocol covering communication skills, psychology, coaching ability, because there's no good being really good at what you do. You're teaching a 6-year-old. To be fair, the 6-year-old's mother doesn't care that you've got 7 black belts. They just want to know you've been nice and friendly towards that kid, and is that kid improving?
Yeah, it's more than the martial arts, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is. And that brings me back to the primary school. You see, she
Yeah,
recognised it was more than just martial arts, and I didn't realise what I was covering actually was something that was part of the brand new Welsh curriculum. So
right.
being over the border in Wales now, they've got this curriculum which is essential that they teach skills to primary school children. And it's part of something called the Donaldson Report. So this professor wrote it, and she asked me if I'd heard about it, and of course I hadn't. She encouraged me to read it, which of course I didn't, but I did flick through it. And it was mentioning life skills like discipline, confidence, trustworthiness, and all this kind of stuff, which I thought martial arts was the pinnacle of. So anyway, with a little bit of wit and a little bit of cleverness, I said to her, "Well, I'm putting together this program called the Successful Life Program." But I explained my story to her, so she was the first person, if you like, I told my story to. And she said, "How much more money do you need to get the program finished?" It was a couple of £100. I can't remember exactly how much it was, but I told her, and she said, "Send me the invoice, and I'll pay for it." So the actual school paid for me to finish this program, write it off. She went, "You do it, and I'll pay for it," kind of thing. So I was like, awesome. So I put this program together, which is now it's gone across dozens and dozens of primary schools in my area, teaching these essential skills. And of course, they pay you to do that. So when she paid me to do that, and she said to me, "Would you want to run an after school club, teaching, your emergency situation management stuff?" That was also another bespoke program tagged on to my martial arts. I was like, "Yeah, that sounds good." And within 24 hours, I'd got 35 kids signed up, paying £45 for this course, which of course, I don't know the math on that, but for me, I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
like,
neither do I.
I was Rockefeller. I'd made
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And that for me, of course, was the boost, which gave me the ability to start to market, reinvest in myself, of course. So I've spent thousands and thousands of pounds on my own training now. Not very little in martial arts now. I'm talking about business skills and marketing and sales and stuff. And that's then obviously catapulted the business to where it is now.
And it shows you, it's that saying, what a difference a day can make. When you went to that primary school to deliver that class, you didn't know that it was going to spiral into all of these other things and just grow exponentially. And it just shows that you've got to just keep pushing, keep believing that things are going to go your way. And at some point, you'll get that break that you need. So could you talk to me a bit about some of these essential skills and stuff that you teach kids outside of just martial arts? I'm curious to hear about some of them, because I also heard when I was researching your story, and this was probably a little bit further down the road, but you also won an award for these types of programs, right? A police award in the education and early intervention category. So I guess, yeah, if you could just tell me about some of these extra skills that you teach kids and also that award, because I guess the things are related.
Yeah, they are. And to be fair, we've won multiple awards. So I think we're about 6 or 7 awards for this same programme. And North Wales Police and the Policing Crime Commissioner has actually recognised us 3 times in 2 years for the same programme. And we've actually been grant funded as well by North Wales Police from Proceeds of Crime. That was a public vote, and they actually chose us to go forward with some money, which was then to be reinvested into this programme. So the programme's really, really simple, actually. It's 12 modules based across 12 different skills, and they're all based on cartoon martial arts heroes.
Yeah.
And they're all different colours. And some of the kids call them Rangers, but obviously, we're not trademarking anything there. So I
Yeah.
call them they're coloured martial arts heroes, and they all have particular personality. So some are more about concentration and focus and responsibility, and then others are all about kindness and fairness and all that kind of stuff. So 12 modules in a school. I teach it differently to what I do in the dojo, but basically you cover that module for a certain period of time by the instructor is telling the child about that skill and what you need to do to gain that skill in a child-friendly way. They then have a task sheet that they can take home with them, which is a bit like a reward chart. They work on that skill. Once it's complete, it comes back. They get a certificate based on that module. You move on to the next.
Wow. Okay. Fantastic. So it sounds like you have, quite a lot of not only drive and determination to get yourself out of the situation that you're in, but also creativity to put all of these programs together, because, that goes beyond your martial arts training. And it sounds really quite interesting. So how did things develop from there? You start doing these programs for children, and then did you end up getting your own premises to teach more kind of fitness classes as well? Yeah. How did things play out and develop from there?
Yeah, I mean, so May 2018 obviously was when we first opened. This was about August, September. No, it would actually have to be September, October. Obviously, when schools reopened, September, October, 2018 that this happened. But I remember about August 2018, I was saying to the enterprise group that I was a member of that I mentioned earlier, I
Yeah.
was going to end up having to fold because it wasn't sustainable. The money I was getting, I was reinvesting back into the club and then living out of the food bank. So I was still living out of the
Right.
food bank at that time. I hadn't even got money for myself. The job centre had paid for the gi that I was wearing, and they'd give me a little bit of a grant or a bursary, I think they call it, a few £100 to pay for the essentials that I needed to open, like insurance and that kind of stuff. So literally nothing to invest in myself there. But with that investment from schools and then her recommendation to other schools, it kind of then started to spread out a little bit, and I got into other schools, which meant I could market and train and do
Yes.
courses on how to market. And once I'd become better at that, of course, then I was starting to get members. So the initial program was age 3 to 7. And that was the first age group I'd got. I thought, well, I now need to go 8 and above, really. So I'd grown into
Yeah.
that, but I was struggling to get more days and times out of the community centre. And it was around that time, actually, that I was pretending that I was going to be getting a business premises just down the road. And I was going to start on the other two. I'd even gone and viewed it with the letting agent. So they'd got my details. And she emailed me actually around that time saying, we've got a client, that's wanting to sublet part of his unit. Would it be something you'd be interested in? Can I pass you his details, etc.? Anyway, so he got in touch with me and said, look, you want to come down and have a look? And it was amazing. The size, the space, I could just see it. And I was like, I'm all in. I didn't tell him this, but I couldn't afford it, but I was all in. I'd spoken to somebody from the council that had helped me form an incorporated business, so a community interest company. So like an old-fashioned not-for-profit organisation. Although I don't really like that term, because you need to make profit to keep the business running. But you know what I mean. It's not for personal profit. So I'd set that up. So of course I was protected once I'd signed the lease. And I just did it. I was like, what's the worst that can happen? And then it was a bit like Field of Dreams, because as soon as I'd kind of opened the dojo, just came. And that's known in our industry. Old school martial arts instructors say that. They'll come to me because they know who I am. Well, nobody knew who I was in the local area, obviously. I just think word of mouth must have got around. And it just literally, the figures just went through the roof. And I got full-time premises with I think it was like 12 members or something, so nowhere near enough to pay for anything. But by the end of that year, we'd got like 140 members. So it'd grown exponentially. So yeah, I'm blessed, really.
That must have also been an incredible feeling when it got too much for you to manage on your own and you started needing to employ other people, which must feel quite nice as well, being able to give others in employment. If you could just talk to us a bit about that moment of when you were expanding and you needed more hands on deck, as it were.
Well, I mean, the great thing is that the program I was running, which was the Certified Instructor Training Program, was providing people helping in class anyway, because they're training to become an instructor, so they were helping. But I was literally, like you said, doing everything from behind the classes and also the classes. And I was burning out. And at this point, I'd still not taken a wage because I was still trying to reinvest back into the school. So I was doing all this free of charge. And it was near Christmas, I think. It must have been near Christmas 2019. So it was getting closer to Christmas. And I'd managed to sort of hold off from getting staff, if you like. And it was speaking to one of the guys there that I really did see potential in. His martial arts history was very little, but his ability to communicate with children and his friendliness, and he was keen. And he was a store manager of quite a large retail outlet. And he was working like a dog, basically. And I just said to him, I said, how much time have you got with your kids over this Christmas? And he was like, you're joking, aren't you? We don't do Christmas. His wife works for the NHS. She was working Christmas Day. He only had Christmas Day off and he was back into work. So there was not really going to have a Christmas, and they're always reliant on childcare. So for him, getting out of that sort of hamster wheel, and for me, it was just a perfect meeting. And I remember emotionally armbarring him by saying, how would you like to spend Christmas with your kids this year? And he was like, oh, you're winding me up and all this. And I went, no, honestly, I said, if you hand your notice in, we'll get you going here. And in 2 weeks' time, you can have 2 weeks off over Christmas, because we shut over Christmas period. And that was it. And since then, we've never looked back. So we've got a growing team of instructors. We're still looking for staffing opportunities now. So actually yesterday, I was in the process of writing some job descriptions that are going to go out, because to grow, you need the staff. There's only so many hours in a day, and trying to do everything yourself is a bloody nightmare. So we're looking for further opportunities now, to be fair, but it does feel good. And even now, his wife, for example, when I offered him the job, she was there and she cried. And I'm like, that's it just shows how much it meant to them. And she's become quite close friends now with my fiance, and I'm quite good friends with him. And it just shows that when you're kind to people and you're giving, you do get the rewards. And that's something that I want to make sure I mention to any would-be entrepreneurs or anybody that's in a similar position. You mustn't forget to give. You mustn't forget to just give from the heart, openly and not expecting anything back. I mean, I'm a Christian, so I'm all into that. But what I mean is, even if you're not, you still got to do that, because that very day that I was asked to go into that primary school and help out, the first thing she said is, "I can't pay you. It's a voluntary position." Some people might have gone, "Oh, well, I ain't got time if it's for free." And I was like, "It's fine if it helps the kids. I'm in." And then, of course, the teacher said, "Can you teach a class? It's for free." I was like, "Yeah, it's fine. I'm in." So by giving, you always receive back.
It's like that saying, and I forget who said it, and it goes something along the lines of, don't worry about becoming a person of success, but rather a person of value. And by becoming a person of value, success will usually follow. And that sounds like it's really true for your story, and it's kind of heartwarming to hear. Really, I just think it's fantastic that you never forgot your roots, and you never forgot to give as things were becoming more and more successful. So if you could just give us a bit of an idea of how things are today in the here and now, some of the projects that you've got going on. You said you're still growing, and you were writing job descriptions, which is fantastic to hear, and also whether the pandemic has made things more difficult. Yeah, if you could just describe sort of the terrain now, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, the pandemic, of course, was very difficult for the difficult time for a lot of people, and we did struggle during that period. What it did do is it gave us an opportunity to get used to technology, and because of that technology, so Facebook and Zoom, that those two particular programs, if you like, that enabled us to get through that period. And although our membership base did decline, because obviously, a lot of people wasn't able to access it, or they didn't want to do it, or they feared for their personal finances. So that did take a little bit of a hit. We maintained, staffing costs the best we could throughout that period. And then, like I said, we reopened in August and just went straight into it. As hard as we could to push forward. So right now we're sat in a better position than we've ever sat before. We've got more members now than we've ever had before. The last 2 months have been absolutely fantastic to us. I mean, right now we're sat in a 2-week fire break in Wales. So technically we're in lockdown again. But Monday the 9th, we reopen. It's enabled us to get a little bit more noticed. People like yourself, are finding us or finding me.
Yeah.
Facebook themselves have noticed us as well, and we've actually been used as part of their national advertising programs now. So if you see me popping up on Facebook, dancing around and doing weird, wonderful things in the dojo, you'll be like, "I recognise that guy." So we've been recognised, but in the wider part because of that, which is great. It's always sad why, but it's great that we get recognised. And
Yeah.
going forwards, I mean, I'm continuing to develop new programs as we speak. So yesterday and the day before, I just announced we've got a brand new program called the Extreme Leadership Degree, which is from black belt and beyond. So we teach now 2 to 4 year olds. So our Cobra Tots program, that's like herding cats, but it's amazing. It's amazingly good fun to see the kids running around, the little faces when they've got the guard up and stuff. Super cool. Our Cobra Kids program, which was the initial one that we went with, that age group has been tightened now, so that's 4 to 7 instead of 3 to 7. Then we've got 8 to 12 and 13 plus across 2 styles. But we, during lockdown, we put our 8 to 12s and our 13 pluses together, and we call it our family sessions. And they were so successful that we've just kept them that way. So now, physically, you've got 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds, and 10-year-olds training with adults, because that then encompasses the whole family ethos. For us, the programs are just going from strength to strength. We're continuously having to put on seminars, and you've got members asking for certain things. So we teach seminars on self-defense. We've got traditional weapons from the Ninja Turtle weapons. So we have traditional Kabuto weaponry. We're teaching anti-bullying seminars as well. So we're trying to just do as much as we can.
The sky is the limit now. You keep developing these programs. The members are growing. You're hiring more people. It just sounds like it's going from strength to strength, and it shows that when you're trying to do a good thing, it's easier to pick up that positive momentum. I think your story is really inspiring, Gavin. Going back to that moment when you bought that briefcase with your £20 Amazon voucher, to where you are now, doing great work in the community and also running a successful business for yourself. I just think it really is incredible. And Gavin, the way I like to finish off all podcasts is by getting guests that come on to give some advice to listeners if maybe they find themselves going through a similar situation in terms of homelessness, or maybe they're just going through adversity themselves more generally. What pieces of advice would you like to give to people that might be listening to your story today?
So for me, there's certain ethics that I think no matter what's happening to you at that point in time, that you have to make sure you keep hold of. I think that's the true test of a human being. And human beings notoriously, historically, have become the most creative and most resilient when backs against the wall. And I believe when you feel like you may have hit rock bottom, then that's great, because at least your feet are on concrete, your feet are steady, and then the only way you can then go is grow. So for me, when you are challenged and when you are tested, you will flourish and grow more. Life skills for me, such as giving, as I already mentioned before, and it just seems to be the case, the more we give to people, the more things we do for charity. So we've got a lot of charity events running through the school, the things like that we do, and we don't do that for personal gain, of course, but it just so happens to come back that way. And my biggest saying, and I teach it to the kids, and I've coined it from a very famous sports brand. Hopefully it's not copyrighted, because I use it, and if they want to sue me for it, that's fine. It's literally just do it. And I use those three words quite a lot with the students, because I build up these analogies of when you go on holiday and you're into the swimming pool and you put your toe into the swimming pool and you're, oh, that's a bit cold, I'm not sure about that. And then you're dipping your foot and you're walking back and forth, you're pacing around the swimming pool, putting your foot in. Oh, then you'll go to get in. Oh, you're changing in about 15 minutes time, you're going to be swimming in there. You know that's going to happen, but yet you still go through this whole charade of putting your foot in, and then will I get in? Well, I won't get in. Just bloody jump in. Just get in there, get swimming, get that first initial shock dealt with, and just do it. Feel the fear and just do it anyway. Because let's be honest, you only live on this planet once, and you only give one opportunity to leave your mark on this world. And do you want to leave your mark on this world with, yeah, he was an all right guy, or wow, he just did so much, he did so much stuff, and he is known for helping so many people. What kind of an impact do you want to leave when you meet your maker?
Absolutely. Wow. I'm sat here and even I'm feeling a bit G'd up here listening to it. So I'm sure listeners are going to feel, exactly. I feel like I just want to do it now. I feel like, listeners are going to find that really inspirational, and especially coming from you, Gavin, because, you were in a really difficult situation, going back to those Haley nights in the bus shelter and the phone box, to now starting up the incredible business, which also helps the community as well. And it's just incredible. And there's some really useful, inspirational and practical bits of advice there that that people can apply to their own lives. So Gavin, I just want to say thank you very much for coming on. You're an inspiration, and it's been a real pleasure to talk to you. So thank you. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
That's it for today's episode. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more, please make sure you subscribe. And above all, thanks a lot for watching. If you've got a story that you want to share on the Back on Track podcast, get in touch, give me a shout. I'd love to hear from you via info@backontrackpodcast.com.